Taurus season starts on Tuesday, April 19th, and it lasts until Friday, May 20th. And this is not a regular Taurus season. We're going to have two eclipses, Mercury retrograde and Jupiter switching signs and entering Aries. Lots to talk about, so let's dive in and break it down for each sign. My name is Anastasia. I am a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive astrology. If you'd like to book a reading with me, there is a link down below. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, give me some love with a like or a comment. Very much appreciated. So before I talk about this Taurus season, I wanted to let you know that I am running a Taurus season special. So every Taurus gets 20% off my 60-minute natal and solar return reading. There's coupon codes down below, and it starts with the Taurus season starting. Let's just talk in general about what Taurus represents as a sign, right? Taurus is a yin domain of Venus. So because it's yin, it's sort of feminine and receptive, and things in Taurus may take a while to manifest, right? It's a little bit of that, like the moon is exalted in Taurus, so there's a lot of the nurturing, supportive energy, kind of like a baby growing in a womb of a mother. So Taurus has that kind of energy of like consistency and working on things that we got started with earlier. It's a slower sign, it's a steadier sign, right? There might be a tendency to take a while to get going, but then once you get going, you're just there, you're steady, you're patient, reliable. It's a very sensual sign. It's a sign with a great understanding of beauty because it is ruled by Venus, a great understanding of harmony and peace, and also just like little joys in life. So we can expect to feel a little bit of that, right? Like to get more creative, to feel a desire for luxury, desire for beauty. It is, as mentioned before, it is also the place where the moon is exalted. So the moon traditionally rules Cancer, and Cancer has that up and down flowing with the tides of the moon, emotional energy. While in Taurus, why is the moon so happy? Because Taurus creates steadiness for the moon, and the moon doesn't have to go through a lot of emotional ups and downs. So we desire stability in Taurus, right? And the moon is happy there, right? Because there is stability. Taurus knows what to eat to feel comfortable, what kind of blanket to wrap oneself in to feel comfortable. So there's a desire to root, to ground, to have comfort, to eat good foods, to enjoy good company, and to build things that last a while. It's an earth sign. It's a fixed earth sign. So it's a very classical archetype of like building a home, starting a family, getting married. There's a desire to build things that are tangible and you can touch, but also things that will last you a long time. There are going to be major new beginnings here with the solar eclipse in Taurus on April 30th. The cycle started in January 2022. And we actually had a lunar eclipse in Taurus in November, so it might be useful to take a look at what was happening in your life in November of 2021. Have you closed any important chapters? Have you completed anything, any relationships, projects, etc.? Because you will see things that completed at that time, there's space for new beginnings, and this eclipse will bring new things. So some of the things that we can expect, right? Like we can expect seeking long-term things professionally, right? Like with Aries, we just had Aries season. There was a lot of new beginnings. There was the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction, new moon in Aries. It would have felt busy and packed and energetic. And it's great, right? Like maybe you got a lot of ideas and build a lot of things, but with Taurus, we're called to like narrow it down and only pursue things that are truly making us happy and making us feel secure, right? Things that will last a long time. So we seek stability, we seek commitment, we seek relationships that are loyal and supportive and bring us a sense of comfort and understanding. we are better at persevering, while in Aries season, maybe there was a tendency to pick up a bunch of things and not necessarily complete them. In Taurus, we're very much focused on doing one thing at a time, getting it to the end. We seek material gains, a higher salary, better apartment, kind of like, you know, things that make us feel secure. Once again, going back to security. We may be more indulgent, so watch out for overdoing it with food, sleep. Nothing's wrong with a lot of sleep. Substances that modify your life. Just kind of like watch out for bad habits and be careful with being stubborn, right? Like that's the shadow side of Taurus, just kind of having that belief of, you know, everything, right? If you have any Tauruses in your life, especially those that are not like working on themselves, there might be oftentimes that tendency to think that they know the answer and be very fixed in that opinion. So be careful that that's gonna, you know, avoid that. And also pay attention to becoming like possessive with things that you have and people that you date. There might be that kind of tendency, you know, it's mine, I'm gonna take it and put it on a shelf. Funny story, I once almost dated a Taurus guy who believed his girlfriend cannot travel with her single friends because he knew what happens there. He was like, I know what happens. It's like her friends will take her out and there's going to be like a lot of, I don't know, temptations and stuff. So that's like a very, I think, shadow side of Taurus, just being super sure that, you know, he knows what's going to happen and no trust, and being like, this is my girlfriend, I decide for her. So be careful of that. There's really lovely vibes. I'll talk about the dates in a second, but there's really lovely vibes early until May 2nd because Venus is exalted in Pisces. And so we're dreamy, we are romantic, we're generous and forgiving, and kind of like, you know, we give a lot. We may be not as good with our choices sometimes, like, you know, kind of lack discernment, so you want to be careful when it comes to that. But at the same time, it's just a really good period for romance. On May 2nd, Venus goes into Aries and we become impatient, impulsive, and kind of reckless in love. It could bring you an exciting new beginning, but at the same time, you want to be careful jumping into things that are not good for you and relationships that will leave you feeling frustrated. So yeah, pay attention, be careful. Dates to note: April 29th, Pluto goes retrograde, calling us to examine the topics of power and control and things that hold power over you, right? Like with the Taurus season, Taurus is connected with food, but it's also very much about not just the food that you eat, but the food of the news that you ingest, the books that you read, the podcasts that you're listening to. So with Pluto going retrograde, with Taurus season being here, you're called to examine your habits and things that you ingest and things that you absorb, and figure out what serves you, what doesn't serve you. Mercury enters Gemini on April 29th. This is quite exciting because Mercury is strong in Gemini, but it does go retrograde on May 10th. So use the period from April 29th until like May 9th, before Mercury stations retrograde, to do any writing work you have to do, to brainstorm any solutions. Since Mercury rules Gemini, it's a comfortable feeling for our mind. Your mind speeds up, there's more ideas, there's more connections, easier to express yourself, easier to have conversations. So maximize that time, because once Mercury goes retrograde, we will have to reconsider certain things. And you can also use this time to prepare, I think. Prepare your technology, double check your plans, watch out that you haven't scheduled anything major for like May 10th and then the next 3 weeks, because Mercury tends to be retrograde for 3 weeks. On April 30th, we have a partial solar eclipse in 10 degrees Taurus, conjunct Uranus. So Uranus brings surprises, right? Uranus has a bit of that quick lightning speed change coming into your life, and it's likely going to be of course, in the sector of your chart that is Taurus, the house that holds Taurus in your chart, but also possibly Venusian topics, love, romance, finances, creativity, art, any relationships, contracts, new beginnings there. Eclipses are unpredictable, right? And this is part of a longer cycle that would have started in January and is going to last until the middle of 2023. So things that you're starting right now may take a while to develop and come full circle. There's going to be another pair of eclipses in October, November, and you may see the results of whatever starts right now at that time. And it's always recommended to kind of take it easy. Do not do any manifestation because eclipses are just too unpredictable for us to set intentions for them. They have intentions for us. And things, I don't know, some things that you can expect is finding a sense of maturity, embodying a mature role, right? For example, I have like a Libra rising client that is buying a home, and she has a solar eclipse in the 8th house, the house of debts and, you know, contracts and karmic obligations. So there's a sense of like becoming mature and taking on this thing, this big, heavy, grown-up responsibility. So maturity, changing the way you present yourself, coming across in a different way, bringing new material resources into your life, right? Like to go with that same example, buying a property, becoming a homeowner. We can expect changes on a global level. There might be changes to like the food supply and whatever is going on with like inflation and financial matters. There might be new beginnings and changes there. I kind of see this as positive because Venus is the ruler of the solar eclipse, and at the time Venus is conjoining Jupiter. So we have an exalted, powerful Venus conjoining Jupiter in rulership. Romantic new beginnings for many signs, but maybe specifically for Capricorn and Scorpio risings. But, you know, we can all get a little bit of that, but it's mainly because for Capricorn, Taurus is the 5th house, and for Scorpio, it's the 7th house. And a sense of like reconnecting with your body, healing your wounds, sexual healing your relationship with food, right? If you had some kind of food disorder. So there is a change might happen in your relationship to pleasure and in your understanding of what's good for you and what brings you peace. So on May 2nd, Venus goes into Aries. This might complicate our love lives a little bit. Like, you know, I talked about this earlier, where you are interested in chasing things. You may be drawn to people who are not so good for you, but they stimulate your fun and exciting side. So there's possibility of like a lot of new things, and maybe you're less concerned about the past, which is good. You know, you're not holding on to things that didn't work out. It's easy to move on, but there might be that like impatience and recklessness and maybe choosing people that are not so great for you. And watch out for being too like blunt to a point that you hurt other people's feelings. May 5th is an exciting day. The sun will conjoin Uranus. This could be a time where we seek independence, we have insights, we present ourselves in a brand new way, we innovate, we have greater self-awareness. There's also, at the same time, there's a danger of rebelling because you're bored, or breaking away from things that are perfectly fine just because you feel a little bit caged in. So avoid acting reckless and avoid breaking things out of boredom. May 10th is a major day. Mercury goes retrograde. Double check your technology. Make sure your schedule is organized and has some space in it for things breaking down. Jupiter also enters Aries. So this is pretty exciting, I think, for Libra risings, for Aries risings. Also, you know, like all the cardinal rising signs, Cancer, Capricorn, can be pretty excited about that. But for all of us, Jupiter in Aries is very direct. It's bold, it's brave, it's pioneering. There's that just do it energy. Funny story, but Nike actually came up with their just do it slogan when Jupiter was in Aries. So quite appropriate, I think, like a perfect example. So with Jupiter being in Aries, on May 10th until October 28th, a longer period, we are more interested in taking risks. We're brave. We're like, yes, it's Taurus season, but there might be a sense of growing through taking initiative and growing through taking risks. Watch out for the tendency to start a bunch of projects or to be a little bit cocky with like, I can take it on all, I can handle it all, and try to be more careful. And finally, on May 16th, we have a lunar eclipse in Scorpio that is making a little bit of tough aspects. It's squaring Saturn in Aquarius. So there's possible frustrations, delays, things that you have to address that deal with karma. And it is ruled by Mars conjunct Neptune at the time. So feels very much, it's a lunar eclipse. So there's a sense of closing, letting go, releasing things. And it's squaring Saturn while Mars conjoining Neptune. So there might be certain dreams that you have to reconsider. There might be past issues that come up. Watch out for a tendency to sacrifice yourself or to victimize yourself, because Mars Neptune can get like really excited about something that is kind of like Jeanne d'Arc energy that will get you into trouble. So if you feel confused at the time, it's okay, take it easy, proceed with caution and care. But I feel like this eclipse could be about us facing our own darkness. It could be intense. Emotions can be quite unpredictable. And there might be a lot of frustration because of that square with Saturn. This eclipse is a T-square, so meaning there's one side is missing. One of the fixed signs is not present, and that is Leo. So you can alleviate some of the stress by tapping into Leo energy, doing something creative, dancing in front of the mirror, making a video, dressing up, putting makeup on, I don't know, accepting a fake Oscar award, do something that will make you feel uplifted. And gathering together with friends can always be very helpful. So let's take a look at all the 12 signs and see what you can possibly expect. For Aries, rising Taurus is the second house. So the place of finances and values. And since there's major new beginnings there on April 30th with the solar eclipse, you can expect gains financially. You can expect a pay raise, starting a new business, joining resources, joining forces with other people. There might also be a sense of spiritual gains because Venus and Jupiter conjoin in your 12th house of spirituality. So maybe you're finding a sense of confidence from pursuing projects that are spiritual. So like, becoming an astrologer, learning about Buddhism, going on a yoga retreat, or you are embodying a spiritual teacher too, and that kind of like either brings you money or makes you feel more secure and confident. Maybe you're tapping into healing your chakras, or you're starting therapy and you're just kind of like feeling like you're more in charge. So solar eclipse in the second house can definitely show up as either a boost in your finances or a boost in your confidence. Let me know which one you'd prefer in the comments below. Venus stays in your 12th house until May 2nd, and then she goes into your first. So Venus entering your first house on May 2nd and then staying there pretty much like a month, a little less than a month, is a boost to your confidence. So from May 2nd, you can expect to feel more confident. Maybe you buy more dresses, maybe you go out more, you put yourself out there more. You may want to take charge of things and take charge of your love life, and maybe change your appearance somehow, because Venus being in your first house, there might be like a natural desire to cut your hair, to rebrand yourself somehow. Jupiter enters your first house, super exciting, on May 10th. This is a boost in confidence, optimism, initiative. You embody a Jupiterian figure, you embody a teacher, a guru, a guide. you become more jolly. There's always a tendency with Jupiter in the first house to gain weight. So be careful when it comes to that. Make sure you're not like overloading yourself and overindulging. But definitely good luck, I would say. Good luck, especially when it comes to you doing things on your own, to you initiating new things, going into the territories previously unknown and putting your flag there. So don't be afraid to experiment. Mercury goes retrograde in your 3rd house and it moves into your 2nd house. So there might be, you may be changing your schedule, or there might be changes to your technology, because Mercury retrograde going into the 2nd house, there's something like I can see you, there's a possibility that, let's say, like computer breaks or your car needs to be like taken to the tech examination place. I don't have a car, so forgive me. But something in your schedule, something in your daily life, something connected to technology may need your attention, and that in turn results in you spending some money on it. There might be a sense of investing into technology that then brings you financial gains. Some kind of, like change to your schedule, change to your confidence, change to your technology, all blending together. And of course, I'll make a video about these events one at a time, but to give you insights. There's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, 8th house, on May 16th, and that brings changes to your sector of money you share with other people, place of inheritance, place of debts. So I can see you paying off a big debt, letting go of some kind of relationship with other people that doesn't serve you. If you are in a, 8th house deals with all things that are visible, like a contract you have with someone, but it's also invisible things. Like you don't speak up with someone because they once did you a big favor and now you feel forever like you owe them and you cannot be quite honest. So this lunar eclipse might be about looking at those things, looking at the relationships and the fears that you have and letting some of those go. For Taurus rising, this is a really big season, right? Taurus is your 1st house. It's your identity. It's your physical body. It's your personal projects. How do you present yourself in the world, right? Like, do you say, I work in finance, or do you say, I am a journalist? Or like, I am a TikTok celebrity or something. So this season for you is the time to redefine that. There might be a lot of focus on you. The solar eclipse in the 1st house on April 30th conjoins Uranus. So you're finding independence. You're stepping out on your own, embodying a very like mature role. Maybe you're supporting other people. Maybe you're shining light on things that matter to other people, because Venus conjoins Jupiter in the 11th house. So there's a sense of projects, whichever projects you're undertaking, being connected to the community, your hopes and dreams, your aspirations, being supported by other people, starting a project that deals with other people, starting a project that deals with social media. 1st house and 11th house feels very much like, let me, start a podcast or start an Instagram page or start a business where I'm interacting with other people. Venus is in your 11th house until May 2nd, so there's good vibes, good energy when it comes to networking and socializing. And then she goes into your 12th house on May 2nd until later in May. And Venus being in the 12th house could make you examine some of the relationship dynamics. There might be relationship challenges this month because of the lunar eclipse in your 7th house on May 16th, this season rather. So Venus entering the 12th house could show up as you needing to examine your tendencies in relationships, all of self-sabotage and self-undoing and challenges that maybe you create in relationships. On the positive, there might be a desire to take a trip with your partner. Watch out for dating people who are not available. That could be like another example of eclipse, solar eclipse in the first house, you're like embodying this great role, taking on a new adventure, but then relationships kind of need your attention and they need to be considered carefully. So you're kind of doing two things. You're trying to juggle, make sure you're not neglecting one thing for the sake of another. So yeah, like Venus going into your 12th house on May 2nd might just create a sense of like a lot of your love life is happening behind the scenes. And there are certain things that you need to examine and release. Jupiter enters Aries, your 12th house, on May 10th, stays there until October 28th. This is good for spiritual new beginnings. This is good for examining all the ways in which you sabotage yourself. We're kind of continuing the theme, right? There might be spiritual healing. There might be answers found in things that are very ethereal and 12th house like astrology, tarot, Buddhism, yoga. You will find a lot of joy in that and a desire to serve other people's. Serve other people's. Go out there and do it. Yeah, like you find joy in volunteer work. There might be gains connected to travel or connected to moving somewhere and working with foreigners. Mercury goes retrograde in your second house on May 10th, and then it moves into your first house. So whatever projects you're starting, you may need to look at your finances and the resources that you have with this retrograde. Do you have enough? Do you need to set some money aside? Do you need to invest some money into your projects? You're doing some kind of financial reshuffling and reorganization. And finally, there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio in your 7th house on May 16th. So this could mean changes and endings to relationships if something is already shaky and in your heart of hearts, you know that it's not going to last long. That can end. There could be, the closing there. You may need to, there might also be like a change in the dynamic, a rebirth. Maybe there is a need to face something and have an honest conversation. A relationship can move to a different stage, but I think there might be a tendency to examine some of the dynamics and some of the things that, because chances are, right, like with Uranus and the sun and all of the action in your house of career, there's a chance that you've been so focused on yourself that maybe your partner is feeling neglected. So I think you're needing to look at your relationships and needing to change things when it comes to relationships. For Gemini risings, Taurus is the 12th house, so we're moving into the realm of spiritual, hidden, self-limiting things, self-undoing behaviors. And the solar eclipse in the 12th house might bring a need for you to let go of something that is holding you back. Are you the one standing in your own way? Venus conjoins Jupiter in your house of career. So there's new professional beginnings, there's new ideas, there's things that you want to take on. Maybe it deals with teaching, maybe it deals to expanding your reach, deals with expanding your reach to more people, to like putting yourself out there more. But first, with the solar eclipse in Taurus, you have to address certain subconscious things that are standing in your way. There might be things that are connected to your karma or your family, things that are out of your control that you sort of have to address, and you have to learn to be more flexible. Solar eclipse in the 12th house can be, it's kind of, interesting because it's the place that deals with all the things that we don't see, our blind spots. So having a solar eclipse in there, you're encouraged to spend some time alone, to connect with yourself, to lean into spirituality, and to feel okay with dealing, or like learn to deal with difficulty, because 12th house is also kind of like birthing pains. If we consider first house the embodied version of ourselves, 12th house is like the push, and you have to go through it in order to get on the other side. So you're pushing through something, you're pushing through your own limitations, you're pushing through self-doubt, insecurity, and coming out on the other side upgraded, right? Like free in some way. There might be new beginnings connected to spiritual pursuits, astrology, tarot, healing other people, Reiki. 12th house deals with people who are isolated, people who don't have their own voice. So maybe you're taking on a role of like a teacher, a guide, leader, helping those people. Venus is in your 10th house until May 2nd, good vibes professionally. Then she enters Aries on May 2nd, focusing your attention on social media, networks, friendships. There might be gains from friendships, especially when Jupiter goes into Aries on May 10th. You will feel, if you have been doubting yourself, you will feel a strong pull to take a risk, to create that social media Instagram page, to put your work out there, to bring people together, start some kind of group project, kind of exciting things when it comes to friendships and people in your life and social media. Mercury goes retrograde in your first house on May 10th, and then it slowly moves into the 12th house. So this deals, once again, I feel like very much with projects you're starting and the new way or kind of how you're presenting yourself and things that you want to say. Mercury in the first house, right? Like it entered your first house on April 29th, and maybe you got all these ideas and you started to feel like itchy to say what you want to say, but then Mercury stations retrograde and perhaps you haven't considered something. Perhaps you rushed into it and haven't thought everything through. So be careful after April 29th and May 10th, before May 10th, be careful making loud and bold statements. Just kind of like take it easy. Finally, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio happens in your 6th house. So there's on May 16th. So there's possible changes to your work life, maybe letting something go. Changes to your schedule, changes to your health. Maybe you're choosing to let go of a job that feels draining and prioritizing your health. If you've been dealing with any kind of like health issue, that might be coming full circle and completing right now. It is squaring Saturn in the 9th house, so there might also be certain hurdles that you have to jump through connected to travel, education, and legal matters. For Cancer risings, Taurus is the 11th house, and there will be new beginnings in your 11th house with the solar eclipse on April 30th. So there's new beginnings in the 11th house. 11th house deals with your friendships, with your networks, and your hopes and dreams. So there might be new projects that you're beginning that deal with the community. It could be anything as, maybe like something smaller where you're joining a group of people and starting a yoga class together, or like you're going to yoga class together with the moms in your yard, in your kindergarten group. Or it could be something bigger where you're giving back and you're volunteering, or you're joining some kind of nonprofit organization. You may be expanding your reach, like reaching out to new people, reaching out to new clients, using social media for your professional gains, and meeting new people, expanding your reach. And I think you're driven by the desire for recognition. So there might be new beginnings when it comes to like opportunities from other people, or things that you take charge in, and like you bring other people together for the sake of embodying a more visible role in the world. Venus is in your 9th house, good energy for travel, dating foreign people, dealing with legal matters, publishing your work, presenting your work, learning new things. And then Venus goes into your 10th house of work on May 2nd, and Jupiter enters 10th house of work, enters Aries on May 10th. Jupiter stays here until October 28th, and this is lovely for your career. You will feel a desire to take action, to present new things, to be brave, courageous, to also like start projects that only depend on you, or to ask for more responsibility. Be careful that you're not overloading yourself and not kind of taking on too much. And otherwise, ask for more things, take the leap of faith, take risks, they will be rewarded with this energy. Mercury goes retrograde in your 12th house on May 10th, and then until the end of the month, it kind of, or like until the end of Taurus season, it stays in your 12th house, but it's slowly moving towards your 11th house, forgive me. So Mercury retrograde in the 12th house might bring a little bit of confusion and uncertainty, and maybe not quite knowing which path to take or how to proceed. And that's okay. Your intuition might get highlighted. There might be more messages coming your way through dreams or symbols or, numbers. I think on that journey to expand your life, to start new projects, there might be questions of motivation, questions of what is it that you're trying to accomplish that will need clarifying first. So proceed with care and know that if things are not blooming immediately, it's okay. It might take time. And first you need to examine your reasoning behind it, or look at all the things that are standing in your way and actually make a plan in order to get where you're trying to get professionally. There's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is your 5th house, on May 16th. This eclipse is squaring Saturn in your 8th house. So there might be certain changes in the lives of your children, because 5th house deals with kids. Maybe you're sending your child to kindergarten, or maybe they're completing their education. Changes connected to children and money might be important too. Like, maybe you need to spend some money on the child, or you realize how much of like a responsibility the child might be. It's also the place of relationships. So there might be certain like romantic relationships that need your attention, and maybe certain secrets, because it squares Saturn in the 8th house. Are you too dependent on the other person? Financially or otherwise? Are they spending all the money and you don't feel happy about? So I feel like there's a need to examine your attitude towards relationships, your attitude towards your children and money. And there might also be creative projects completing. And 5th house deals with sexuality. So I can also see this as maybe like a deeper question of what is sex to you and how you look at it, and does it bring you satisfaction, as well as 5th house is like all of our vices and things we enjoy doing, but maybe that sometimes limit us somehow. So you might be called to release off some of the ways you have fun that aren't good for you, or things that are limiting you, right? And not letting you go into that sector of the 11th house where you're trying to bring new beginnings. For Leo rising, Taurus is the 10th house, so it's all about career. It's all about professional new beginnings. We get a solar eclipse in Taurus on April 30th. This is part of a longer cycle. All of 2022, the first half of 2023, you are redefining your career. You are redefining who you want to be, how you want to be seen. So with the solar eclipse, conjunct Uranus with Venus and Jupiter being in your 8th house, there's new professional beginnings. There might be sudden opportunities, and they may be coming from your partner. Maybe your partner is giving you finances and allowing you to take on a new role, to become a writer, for example, while before you were an accountant. There might be collaborations and resources coming from other people, support coming from other people. You may also be getting a bonus, or maybe your loan gets approved and that allows you to take that professional leap. Venus stays in your 8th house until May 2nd, bringing you good energy for financial new beginnings, asking for money, getting gifts from other people, getting support from other people. And then Venus goes into the 9th, and Jupiter enters your 9th on May 10th, and Jupiter stays in your 9th until October 28th. So you are perhaps starting an education project, perhaps traveling. There is a desire to expand your world. There's a desire to take on more, to learn more, to teach other people. So this could be a part of your professional growth, right? Like where you take on a role of a teacher and mentor and maybe embody a new role professionally. Or this could be just something that you're doing for yourself. Maybe you're finding more joy now in teaching and learning and traveling, and you're taking on more of that. Mercury goes retrograde in your 11th house on May 10th, and then it's going to slowly move into your 10th house for the next 3 weeks, right? Like Mercury's retrograde from May 10th and plus 3 weeks. So this, I think, with all the action that's happening for you professionally, there might be a question of who is with you, what kind of people are around you. Are they supporting your goals or are they standing in your way? Do you need to make new connections? Do you need to go to a networking event? Do you need to send out some emails to your friends and ask them to support you? Are you maximizing social media? Do you have a strategy to reach your goals? You're definitely shuffling through this because Mercury slowly backs into your 10th house. So the answer or the direction of Mercury lies in the career. So it kind of all brings it back to the professional matters. And finally, there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio on May 16th. This is your 4th house. It squares Saturn in the 7th house. So there's changes when it comes to your home and living situation. Maybe you're completing a project, maybe you're moving, renovating, buying, selling. There might be family karma that is challenging and needs to be addressed. Something that possibly is affecting your relationships. There might be tough conversations that you need to have with a family member. Maybe a family member needs your attention and care. Looking at the past, examining your past relationships and childhood and seeing how it affected you could be important here too. Be careful, getting into fights with people, and try to take responsibility for, all the good things that are happening in your life and look at the challenges as lessons and steps towards success. For Virgo rising, Taurus is the 9th house, and there's going to be an eclipse, the first solar eclipse of the year, in the 9th house on April 30th. So this brings new beginnings connected to learning, starting a course of study, starting like going to university or even taking a course, let's say, in something esoteric or spiritual, because 9th house is connected to astrology and higher mind and things that are more like philosophical. Becoming a teacher, for sure, is a possibility here with Jupiter being in your 7th house. Maybe you have collaborated with other people and you're starting a project together with them. There might be a desire to learn something new, like learn a foreign language, to travel to a foreign place, to expand. You're expanding your life somehow. You're taking on new things and either learning new things or expanding your life by going to new places. Venus is in your 7th house until May 2nd, so there's good energy for romance, dating a foreigner, for example. Not necessarily, right? But there's like Sun being in your 9th house. There's just like a lot of focus on people and things that are different. You're fascinated by them. And then Venus goes into your 8th house and Jupiter enters your 8th house. So from like May 2nd, Venus goes into the 8th, Jupiter goes into the 8th on May 10th. So this is good for if you need finances, if you need some kind of assistance from other people. This is perfect. You're joining resources with other people. You're putting your heads together with other people. Your partner might get some kind of bonus, like recognition financially, so you can definitely benefit from them. But lovely time for collaborating and joining resources with other people. Mercury's retrograde from May 10th until the end of the month, and it starts the retrograde in your house of career, and then it moves into your 9th house. So feels very much like, what are your goals professionally and what is missing? What do you need to learn? What kind of people do you need to reach to? How are you, like what kind of knowledge you have, what kind of resources you have in order to get to where you're going. Feels mainly like learning, expanding your knowledge, maybe taking a trip in order to reach professional goals. And finally, there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is your third house on May 16th. So there might be a completion of study or a completion of some kind of technology project. Going on a short trip is a possibility. Changes to the lives of your siblings. Something is changing in your schedule and changing in the way you communicate with others. Perhaps, all the things that are happening in your sector of higher learning and aspirations and travel plans, you need to adjust your schedule accordingly. So maybe you're letting go of something that used to occupy your time and readjusting your daily life in order to fit your new goals. Definitely changes in the lives of the siblings. Like your siblings might be going through some kind of important transformation, or your relationship with them. Maybe you need to address the way you communicate, whether you're happy with things or not, and redefine the dynamic. For Libra risings, Taurus is the 8th house, the place of shared resources, karmic debts, taxes, all the contracts you have with other people, your karma, your healing. So there's new beginnings there, especially with the solar eclipse on April 30th. Maybe you're paying off a debt. Maybe you're letting go of some kind of karma and things that were tying you down. There might be changes connected to getting loans and mortgages. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, one of my clients is a Libra rising and she's getting a mortgage and buying a home. So this is a very literal manifestation, paying off a debt or getting money, borrowing money, going into debt, right, for some kind of bigger reason, bigger purpose. There might be new collaborations with others, a lot of new beginnings when it comes to joining forces with other people. So if you're trying to figure out the direction you want to take, perhaps reach out to others, connect with them, and start new agreements. Venus is in your 6th house until May 2nd, and then she goes into your 7th house. So Venus in the 6th until May 2nd is good for health. Maybe you're feeling more energetic. Watch out for overindulging when it comes to sugar. And then she goes into your 7th on May 2nd, and Jupiter enters your 7th on May 10th. So this is very exciting. Jupiter will stay in your 7th house of relationships until October 28th. And Jupiter in the 7th can bring a lot of exciting things when it comes to partnerships. So Libra, by nature, you're already other people oriented. So there could be gains from taking risks with your business, from joining forces with other people, starting projects with other people. Getting married is a possibility, meeting someone. It's not always the most romantic. Of course, Venus being there kind of highlights the romantic energy, but it could also mean meeting people who are inspirational, meeting teachers, meeting gurus, meeting people who offer you new opportunities. So definitely things to look forward to. Mercury goes retrograde in your 9th house on May 10th and stays retrograde pretty much until the end of May. And it moves slowly into your 8th house. So there might be certain matters you have to deal with when it comes to legal agreements with other people. Maybe, it backs into your 8th house. Maybe there's debts that you have to pay and you need to take care of. Maybe something you've forgotten, right, that you owe. Maybe some contract you need to sign. And taking care of education and travel matters is a possibility here. I would be careful traveling at this time. And if you are, just make sure you're double checking everything. And finally, there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is your 2nd house on May 16th. Lunar eclipse brings changes, release, letting go of something in your financial sector. So maybe you're letting go of a source of income. Maybe you are completing a project, getting a payment on it. Because the energy, the finances go towards borrowing money or paying off debts. I think it's all tied together. So either you're making some money or you're spending money on something major with this eclipse. For Scorpio risings, this is exciting when it comes to relationships. So the eclipse and Taurus is your 7th house. So there's major new beginnings when it comes to your relationships with this Taurus season. April 30th is the day of the eclipse, and a lot of focus goes towards your partnerships. So I can see you getting married, getting engaged, starting new relationships, and it's a longer cycle, right? This is the first eclipse of the year. There's going to be a lunar eclipse in Taurus later at the end of the year. So maybe you're kind of starting a relationship and then you will see it come full circle at that time. Business partnerships are possible, going on more dates, joining forces with other people, starting a business. There's a lot of exciting things. Venus stays in your 5th house, focusing your attention on the topics of children, romance, and creativity. Maybe that's the kind of partnerships you're starting with other people. And then Venus goes into your 6th house, so on May 2nd. So there's good energy when it comes to health and maybe adding more fun things into your daily life and into your workouts. If you've been doing the same workout or the same kind of series of workouts for the next few months, Venus being in your 6th house and Jupiter going into your 6th house on May 10th until October 28th will help you change things up. Jupiter in the 6th is also really good for any health things. Like it could bring good health. It could bring a lot of focus on your health too, and a desire to take action. So, for some Scorpio risings with Jupiter and Neptune conjunction having happened in your 5th house of children, this could also be very much like about getting pregnant and then needing to take care of your body and rearrange your diet in order to take better care of yourself. Mercury goes retrograde on May 10th. The retrograde starts in your 8th house and then backs into the 7th house. This is quite simply about things that you maybe are not saying in your relationship, the topics of fairness and justice, right? Are you taking on more than your partner? Are you giving more? Are you feeling dissatisfied? And if you are, this is the time to talk about it and maybe introduce new things, a new way of doing things. And then there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio in your 1st house on May 16th. And it squares Saturn in your 4th house. So this could be tough. This kind of like lunar eclipse seems more complicated. There might be certain things that you need to let go of, especially because there's new beginnings in relationships. So there might be a sense of like letting go of your freedom, letting go of things that you held dear. And very much so, right? Like if you get engaged or if you decide to move in together with your partner with a solar eclipse, you need to release some of your furniture. Maybe you need to, or you start dating someone who has like a cat allergy, and now you're facing this question of like, can you keep your cat or do you give your cat to your mom? So there might be certain things that you're letting go. There might be fears you're facing when it comes to relationships and your freedom. Be careful around that time, like just take it easy and do as much as you can with the start of the Taurus season. I think Jupiter being in your 6th house of health come May 10th is beneficial for your health, but I would still do your best not to overextend yourself and not to stretch yourself too thin. For Sag rising, Taurus season highlights your 6th house, and there's a solar eclipse on April 30th in your 6th house. So this brings new beginnings when it comes to work and when it comes to your schedule, your daily life, your health, your routines. You're upgrading those. You are committing to something. Like you might be committing to your health. You might be committing to a pregnancy, raising a child, starting something new, starting a work project, or starting a new job that will require a lot of time and a lot of energy, but will make you feel better about yourself, will make you feel more secure. Maybe you're getting a pet, right? There's also a possibility there. Venus is in your 4th house until May 2nd, so there's good energy when it comes to when it comes to home and family, spending more time with family, getting along with them, feeling more joyful in their company. And then Venus enters your 5th house and Jupiter goes into your 5th house on May 10th. So Venus goes on the 2nd, Jupiter goes on the 10th. Jupiter will stay in your 5th house until October 28th. So this is a longer transit that is really, first of all, Jupiter in the 5th is a very fertile time. So having babies, getting pregnant, thinking about children comes very naturally with Jupiter being in the 5th house. You may feel a pull to start creative projects, to express yourself creatively. And romantically, this is a lovely energy because there might be more desire to go out and take action and put yourself out there more. Mercury goes retrograde in your 7th house on May 10th and basically stays retrograde until the end of the month. So it starts on the 7th, it backs into your 6th. There's things that you need to discuss in your relationship that deal with your professional goals or deal with the topics of service. If you have felt that you're serving your partner and you're investing a lot of energy into a relationship and you haven't felt a sense of them giving back to you, you might need to address that. And there might be conversations you need to have about very like routine things, paying bills, buying groceries, you know, having space in the closet, who has what kind of space. Basically, you're called to clarify responsibilities in your relationships. There's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio in your 12th house on May 16th. This might be tricky as, you know, Scorpio energy, South Node releasing something, facing all the ways in which you sabotage yourself, facing some kind of secrets, having insights and realizations into your own limitations and your own fears. Could be very healing, could be very supportive, but could also be quite emotional and challenging. For Capricorn risings, Taurus is the 5th house. So there's going to be a solar eclipse, major new beginnings in your 5th house on April 30th. 5th house deals with romance, children, creativity. So you can expect new beginnings in those spheres, right? So children, getting pregnant, working with children, and new beginnings in the lives of your children. If they're older, maybe they're starting kindergarten or they're starting college and your relationship with them is changing. Romantic new beginnings, creative new beginnings are definitely possible there, right? Like if it's not a literal child, maybe you give birth to a creative project and you're choosing, it's part of a longer cycle. Throughout that cycle, you're learning to choose to prioritize yourself and your own joy. And find kind of like care less about what other people think and focus on your own joy and bliss. Venus is in your 3rd house, great energy connected to siblings, neighbors, opportunities connected to writing. And then Venus goes into your 4th house of home and family on May 2nd. And so does Jupiter. Also enters your 4th house of home and family on May 10th. Jupiter stays there until October 28th, so it's a longer transit, blessing your home and family matters. So relationship with the family might get better, your living situation might improve. This is quite a lovely time to maybe buy a home, renovate a home, invest into a home. And you're also, I think you might also feel more secure in the space that you inhabit. Mercury goes retrograde in your 6th house on May 10th, and then it moves into your 5th house. It stays retrograde the entire month. So you may be changing your habits, you may be changing your daily life, you're maybe letting go of something that occupies your days in order to find more joy and more fun and more inspiration with this Mercury retrograde. And I'll talk about it more as we get closer. And finally, there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, your 11th house on May 16th. So this lunar eclipse brings changes and completion to group projects, to friendship dynamics, to networks that you associate with, maybe it could bring cutting ties with a friend, letting go of a friendship, or reconsidering a friendship. I think it's also very important, and the theme here might be with the solar eclipse on all the focus in the 5th house and your desire for joy, fun, becoming a parent, pursuing your creative things. You're letting go of a certain dream, perhaps, or you're postponing a dream. And with the lunar eclipse on May 16th, you may need to address that and kind of accept that in some way, right? Or be ready to rearrange your life to fit those future projects that you have in mind. For Aqua rising, Taurus is the 4th house, and we get a solar eclipse there on April 30th. Expect major new beginnings when it comes to home and family. Maybe you're investing into a home and buying a property. Maybe you are renovating, moving houses. Maybe a family member is having a child and something is changing in your family dynamic. But I definitely can see, because Taurus is very material and very like resource oriented, bringing things into the home and buying property, right? You're ultimately looking to feel safe and secure. So some other possibilities here could deal with examining family karma and maybe finding peace with things that is more spiritual, and more physical, literal, would be like feeling more secure in the world with buying a property or something like that. Venus is in your 2nd house until May 2nd, so it's kind of blessing your finances and maybe bringing bonuses and gifts. And then it goes into your 3rd house on May 2nd, and then Jupiter enters your 3rd house on May 10th. Jupiter stays here until October 28th, so there is big, exciting things happening when it comes to your mind, when it comes to your skills and hobbies. So skills and hobbies, for example, you've been wanting to be an astrologer, or you've been wanting to become a yoga teacher. So with Jupiter there might finally be that impulse of like, let's do it. Now is the time. What am I waiting for? Communication, writing, maybe you may feel inspired. You may feel like a renewed sense of purpose, and maybe you're expressing that and expressing yourself through writing or expressing yourself through communication. 3rd house deals with technology too, so things like starting a blog, putting more things on social media are definitely possibilities here. Mercury goes retrograde in your 5th house on May 10th, and then it moves into your 4th house. Mercury retrograde in the 5th might create like a sense of a lack of fun and romance in your life. So maybe you're looking for a way to have more fun, and the answer might lie in spending more time with family, in starting a project with a family member, or creating more fun in your home, right? Buying board games, or planning get-togethers with friends. Basically, you're looking for inspiration, and the inspiration might lie closer than you think. And finally, there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is your 10th house, on May 16th. So I think with that, with that Taurus energy, with that kind of Jupiter in the 3rd house, and maybe you choosing to pursue your skills and hobbies, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio may bring changes and completion of something at work, letting go of a career, letting go of an aspiration. Maybe you're completing a project. I think you may need to feel discomfort a little bit professionally, and perhaps examine, look at how you're standing in your own way, right? And take a risk professionally. Very much, or yeah, like kind of like let go of people pleasing professionally, let go of the old view of yourself and embrace the new one. But there might be certain things that you first have to deal with when it comes to work. Finally, if you are a Pisces, Taurus is your 3rd house, so there's new beginnings there with the solar eclipse on April 30th. New beginnings in the 3rd house may involve a lot of different things, right? So it's the place of your neighborhood. that you might be getting involved with your neighborhood a lot more. Maybe you're starting a job that requires you to walk to work, for example, and now you're like taking these new scenic routes and you're getting to know your neighborhood a lot more. This house deals with communication and writing and teaching and like learning. So you may see new beginnings there, kind of like new projects when it comes to sharing your knowledge or learning things, using your hands, using your words to express yourself a lot more. And it's also the place of siblings. So new beginnings in the lives of your siblings, and maybe even more interactions with siblings and sibling-like figures, neighbors is a possibility here too. Venus is in your first house, so you're extra charming until May 2nd. Then she goes into Aries, your second house, and Jupiter goes into Aries on May 10th. Jupiter stays there until October 28th. So you are more competitive when it comes to making money, and money will likely come easier to you. Watch out for overextending yourself and getting too cocky and taking on too many projects. If you're staying kind of like high-minded and focused on the task at hand, I think your finances will flourish. And as well, second house with Jupiter being there until October 28th, I can see you feeling more confident and secure in your pursuits and maybe more willing to take a financial risk. Spending money is a possibility here too, because second house is not just making money, it's also spending more money. Mercury goes retrograde. The retrograde starts in your fourth house and then it kind of shifts into your third house. So Mercury retrograde in the fourth, going into the third, can bring changes connected to property. Maybe you're refinancing, maybe you're moving, like investing into the home somehow. I know a Pisces rising who's becoming a realtor, so there's also very much like, changes connected to property, but becoming someone who tells other people or shows properties to other people. And then ultimately that leads to changes to a schedule, because Mercury moves into the third house, and changes in a career definitely brings changes to your schedule. So you can expect changes in the home and immediate kind of like family environment. Upgrading your car, creating a new schedule, bringing new technology into your life are also possibilities here. And finally, there's a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is your 9th house, on May 16th. Lunar eclipse in Scorpio can bring a completion of a course of study. It can bring changes to the legal matters. There might be travel that you have planned for a while and now you take a trip. There might also be certain topics connected to your place in the world that you have to examine, and the effect your thoughts have on your present situation. So I think with the full moon in Scorpio, there may be a certain discomfort and certain things that you have to address, especially because it squares Saturn in your 12th house. So kind of all the things that, because it's a completion, maybe like you're separating from your partner and you have to sign a contract and it brings you, or you have to sign divorce papers and it brings freedom. But at the same time, it's like a completion of an old version of yourself, and you feel sad and you miss that old version of yourself. This is all I have. It's an insanely long video. Somehow it just ended up being super long. I hope you enjoyed it and have a wonderful Taurus season. I think there's a lot of things to look forward to. Some challenges, right? But there's always, you need a little bit of darkness or dark color in the lightness. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.